Hi guys, it's Louise from Craft Geek Dioramas, and I thought I would bring you a different kind of video today. Usually, obviously, as you all know, and for people who follow my YouTube channel, I mainly make dioramas for toy photography and display. But I do obviously do other things as well in my spare time for a hobby, and one of those things is customizing figures. And a few of you may have seen on my channel here that I've dabbled in 1/6 customization of figures over the years, and I decided to sort of branch out into 1/12 scale 6-7 inch figures as something new. And I basically started with these three. So these three are my first custom 6-inch figures. I've never painted figures before in my entire life. Obviously paint dioramas regularly. Figures I'd never tried. I think it was more of a confidence thing really, and I wanted to make two figures especially, which was the Hank Moody from Californication and Lincoln Hawk from Over the Top, Sylvester Stallone. And when I saw some of the base figures around, I decided to go ahead and give it a go. So what I thought I'd do is just show you how I did them and see what you guys think. Regarding the Hank Moody, if I start with these two, basically I started to think about making a Hank Moody when I saw the Molder Diamond Select figure, which the figure on the right here, the Hank Moody there, was the base figure. And the great thing with the Diamond Select Molder figure was he came with two heads, alternate heads, one with sunglasses and obviously one without, and he came with two sets of hands and some obviously other accessories as well. So when I saw him come up on Amazon for a really good price, I decided to buy him and attempt to make two custom figures of him. If I start with the one in the middle, which is the Molder base figure, basically with this figure, he is a complete repaint from head to toe. Well, all the figures are actually. And anybody who knows the Molder Select figure, it comes basically like this. He's got a green jacket, he's got a grey t-shirt on with buttons at the top, the blue jeans and some black shoes. So I knew I didn't have to do an awful lot to this figure, but obviously I had to change the t-shirt, and what I did there was I cut the buttons and the open part that was on the shirt, and I sanded it down, and then I added green stuff, modelling stuff to the t-shirt, and then made it into a black t-shirt like he would wear in the show. So really that was the only sort of sculpting I did on this figure. And then obviously, like I said, a complete repaint. Out of the two heads on the Select figure, I have to say this sculpt is far better than this one, even though they are the same sculpt. This one just seems more realistic. This one's a bit more what I would call derpy. But still, after the paint, the actual repaint, it looks far better than what the originals did, because the originals were very flatly painted. He had a terrible 5 o'clock shadow added to the face, so you know, they're a vast improvement to what they were. So basically, if I go in a bit closer to this Hank, so yeah, a complete repaint of the head, which I did, and added a little bit of a shadow to him. I repainted the jacket black, and obviously repainted the shirt black, and I used Citadel paints on all of these figures actually. The jeans I kind of kept the same. All I did was add a bit of dry brushing to them. And the shoes, they were like a black colour, so Hank usually wears like tan coloured shoes. So I basically did a repaint of the shoes just to make them look a little bit more like he would wear. So that's really all I did to this figure, and I think sort of a complete repaint of the heads alone worked. product. And the hands were Moulder's hands that were in the select box, and obviously I repainted those as well. And if I just turn him around, you can kind of see the reverse side of him. So that's the back of that Hank figure. And if I turn around again, without knocking everything over, there we go, and that's him back in position. Okay, so now the Hank on this side, I also wanted a Hank with his black shirt on, and I saw an Edward from Twilight figure, which is, this is the base figure for, and I thought it would be a perfect base figure for Hank. The open shirt is something Hank would wear. The trousers were more of a black colour on the base on the Edward figure, but obviously I knew I could repaint those. The only thing I would say with the shoes on the Edward figure is that they were very pointed. So what I did is I cut the ends off and then sanded them to make them look more rounded. And obviously a repaint, which does make them look a little bit more like what Hank would wear. The only other thing with this figure is that it had a few like tears, or made to look like tears in the shirt on the Edward figure. So what I did again is I added some green stuff to the shirt and then moulded it in, and then obviously it had a repaint, so you wouldn't know that they were actually there. With this Hank head, so really this was purely a head swap. Took the Edward head off and then obviously put the Hank head on. He fitted really well actually, so I was really pleased with how easy it was to apply the head to this body. The sunglasses that were on this Hank figure, Moulder figure, were fine. They had like a silver rim to them, but they were just like painted on. So I really wanted more of a black pair of sunglasses on Hank, so I repainted the sunglasses as well as obviously the head, but I repainted them completely black, which I prefer. Obviously this figure's had a complete repaint, as I've just already said. So the shirt, it was all a blue colour, trousers were black or a grey, and the boots were like a brown colour. What I did is I also swapped out the hands, so Edward's hands I took off, and the other set of Moulder's hands I put back in. The Edward figure also was very sparkly on the chest, because obviously, you know, Edward from Twilight sparkled, so obviously that it needed a repaint anyway. So if I go a little bit closer, you can kind of see what I did. So that's the repaint of the head and hair, and a repaint of the shirt, again using the Citadel paints and dry brushing. And the trousers I did a jean colour, like a blue, and added again dry brushing, and then I painted the shoes brown. The other thing I did to his right hand is I added a ring. So I painted a ring onto his finger, which he wears in the show, and then I made a cigarette out of balsa wood, because Hank would obviously always have his cigarette. And if I turn this figure around so you can see, sorry for my terrible camera work as usual, very amateur, but I do apologise. And that's the reverse of him. I really, really love this figure. It's probably my favourite out of the three that I've done. I'm really, really pleased with my paintwork on this one. And I think this one out of the two, to me, portrays Hank with his swagger. The only thing this figure needs actually is a bottle of alcohol, whiskey, and that would finish it off perfectly. Okay, so that's the Hank from Californication, and then I wanted to make a Lincoln Hawk. As you guys may know, if anybody that follows me, I made a 1/6 version of Lincoln, and unfortunately I had to move him on because I have parted with many of my 1/6 figures. So I wanted to make a 1/12 scale of him. I had toyed with the idea of doing a kit bash of him from the Rambo, NECA Rambo figure, base figure, and then using a NECA Rocky head. But with the costings of it all at this moment in time, I couldn't really justify buying two really great figures and just completely breaking them up. So it is something I will do in the future, but for now, this is how I made him. I basically purchased a wrestling figure, and the wrestling figure, I have no idea who it was because I'm not a follower of WWE at all, but he basically had blue jeans on and he had like this vest top that was like I think it was a grey colour, and I just saw the base figure and thought, I knew that I had a Jack specific Rocky head, which I knew would be very similar to how Lincoln would look. So I knew that it would be a pretty straightforward head swap from the wrestling figure to pop the Rocky head sculpt onto it. So that's basically what I did, is I just took the head off the wrestling figure and then I popped the Jack specific head onto this figure. Now it went on okay. It had to have a little bit of work on the neck, but it was okay in the end, but it was quite difficult really. So yeah, so basically the only bit of sculpting I did on this figure was the braces on the top, and having my time over again, I would probably do them differently now I've learned how to do it properly. I think, but for my first attempt, I don't think I did too badly a job. I wanted to have him wearing his vest top in the last sort of scenes of Over the Top. If anybody's watched it, he wears like a black vest top, grey braces, and he wears like grey trousers. And that's the kind of look that I wanted. Now, I wanted him to have his baseball cap. So I knew I could get a black one, wrestling one, but unfortunately I haven't got a Dremel tool at the moment that I could like add the hat to the head. So the next best thing was to have the hat and have him holding it. So adding the braces to the base figure, the base figure already had like the arm pads that they had, so I kept one of them and repainted that because Lincoln obviously wears his signature sort of sleeve that he wears when he wrestles, so I thought that would work quite well. And then I obviously repainted the whole figure, so obviously repainted the Jack specific Rocky head, which I'm actually really pleased how that came out, considering what the standard head is like before the paint app. I'm really chuffed with how that came out. Repainted the whole body, so the only thing I don't like about this figure is the hands, but my time again, I maybe would have probably looked into a better like elite type WWE figure, but then they're a lot smaller than the Jack specifics and then his head would look too large. So this is kind of the best I could work with what I got. So if I have to kind of put up with his weird hands, then I'll put up with it. But I gave it all a repaint anyway, which I think looks a little bit better than what it was. Repainted the shirt black like in the movie, and obviously his braces I painted grey. I added the New York logo to his t-shirt, which was quite difficult because it's actually quite small, but it didn't come out too badly. And then I repainted his trousers from the blue jeans that were being worn on this figure, and I repainted them to grey, and I wanted them to look dirty and grimy because, you know, he's a truck driver, it's very dusty, sweaty, so I wanted them to look worn and dirty. And obviously his boots are they're not the greatest boots sculpt wise on these figures, but I basically just repainted it black and then added a little bit of weathering to them. His hat, what I did is I painted on the front there, I painted a white label like he has on there, and then sort of added some detail in red to make it look like the hat logo that he wears. And if I turn this figure around without focus, without knocking anything over, be a miracle. So let's turn this one around. Okay, so there's the back of him. I sculpted the braces into the back there. Again, like I said, I could do a better job, but I don't think it's that horrendous. I'm quite happy, really, for my first attempt. I don't think it's too bad. Maybe would have done the trousers a little bit better. And then what I did at the end, because obviously in the movie he's very sweaty, I added a nail varnish, actually, clear nail varnish to the arms and to the face to kind of give him that kind of sweaty, wet look, which I think works quite well. So yeah, that's my 3 figures, guys, that I've done. For my first attempt, I'm pretty chuffed, and I hope you enjoyed my video. I'll speak to you all soon. Bye!